We grew up in a Christian cult that shaped the way we saw God, people, and even ourselves. Leaving our church wasn't easy, but it led us to something better: truth, freedom, and healing. The McMaster's Chronicles is a place where we tell our story, and hopefully a place for others who've walked through spiritual abuse to feel seen, understood, and not alone. We talk about abuse, recovery, rebuilding faith, and the messy, beautiful process of learning how to live again. You'll also find the everyday stuff: our dogs, cats, garden, and all the simple joys that remind us why life is worth rebuilding. This is the McMaster's Chronicles, our story of healing, honesty, and hope. Join us as we chronicle our life, because recovery is real, and so is redemption.
Everybody, welcome to another episode of McMaster's Chronicles. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Joy.
And today is going to be kind of a big one about the way that the pastors in the church that we were a part of used what they called tough love, and how they excused it as just that, as tough love versus abuse. And they did this for really forever, but it really was amplified after certain people left the church and started calling out what they were doing as abuse. And we're going to just go through different ways that they did that, and excuses, biblical excuses that they used in order to justify what they were doing. But like, one of the big things that I remember, because I remember growing up there, I always thought that the way that the pastor spoke was just normal. Like, that's the way that somebody who loves you, if they love you, they care for you, they're going to speak to you strongly and harshly, because otherwise you won't really get it and you'll keep doing the same thing. And then whenever this one church member left, and then I started hearing it be called abuse by the pastor, but the pastor was mocking what the person called it. So like, they were saying, well, this person said we were abusive. And they're like, that's not abusive. That's just love. We're correcting, or we're saying truth, and you don't like what we're saying, so you call it abusive. Mm-hmm. And so like, if you ever didn't like what they were doing, you said it was abuse, they just were like, no, you just don't like it.
So they were redefining what was really going on. They had to redefine it, and they had to take back that word. They had to make that word preposterous. They had to make the word abuse preposterous to us. Like, they had to make us feel like when we thought that what they were doing was wrong, we were the ones that were really wrong. We were the ones that were wrong for thinking that what they did was wrong.
Right. And that goes back to like the same thing I think we've said through every video, is like, they are never wrong.
Yeah.
And we're always the wrong ones. Like,
I
have yet to really see a time, I think we've mentioned a couple times over 25 years that they may have slightly admitted some sort of level of whatever, but the main core thing there is that if anything happens, if you have a problem with anything, you're the one that's wrong. They are not ever at fault.
Yeah.
But they really tried to make it so that he went after the word abuse and being abusive.
In this specific time frame after this girl left.
Yeah.
He went after the word
so
abuse.
that could be removed from the table, because then you can't then come in and say what is abusive, because he's already defining that it's not abuse, and he's telling you it's not. So then you can't say it. And
so when we talked with the pastor's wife, the lead pastor and his wife, what did they say?
So I remember, like, because there was one night in particular before this was the last night this girl was
December
there.
2019.
Yeah. The pastor emeritus, like, sat people in certain areas. I believe he's the one that told them to sit in a certain place. I don't know. I could be wrong with that. But this one group sat together. It's a family. And he just went off on specifically this one young lady. And
another one too.
Yeah, multiple people. But this one young lady wasn't taking it. She wasn't like gonna do like anything that he was wanting her to do. And he was like yelling, he was just doing all sorts of mockery. Yeah.
Humiliating.
And afterwards, it was I remember being in that message and just, it was like the tension.
It was really scary.
So bad.
Really scary.
It was, yeah. And we had dinner with the pastor and his wife later on.
The lead pastor.
The lead pastor, not the pastor.
The pastor emeritus was the one that was doing the abuse.
In that moment.
We weren't allowed to call abuse, but it was abuse in the moment, yeah. And then we meet with his son.
And then they say like, well, you see how strong it has to be because that's how strong basically the enemy's hold on that person was, or like it's gotta like counteract and it's like it was not about, I remember it was like, it's not about how it's being said, it's what's being said. That's what they would always say. So it would justify how they say anything. The pastor could yell at you, a pastor could do whatever.
Because then their justification is, oh, but this is to bring you closer to God.
Right.
So
and it
was always to bring you closer to God, or if it's to point out sin, which in retrospect, like a lot of the times, it wasn't even really sin that you were doing.
Right.
Which you feel like they're the ones that are flinging this sin onto you. And you have to accept that you are sinful.
Yeah.
And you're sinner.
Yeah. I just remember that it was always that they would always be like, you would say, I don't like the way you spoke to me. I don't like how this happened. This was scary or whatever. And it was always like,
I would say that.
Well, anybody in the church,
yeah,
like you, me,
I know
somebody
I did
else.
Say that.
And their response was always like, well, stop making the method of which it was said the issue and actually hear what's being said. We can deal with that later.
So what was being said is, I'm a bitch.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know. Those are the things that were being said. But their whole thing was like, try to hear what the Lord's speaking to you. What is actually being said? Don't worry about the method. You can get caught up. But basically, by them doing that and saying that, it's like, don't worry about the method, basically clears them of speaking to you however they want to. Yeah. Because then it's your fault if you have a problem with how they say it. Yeah. You're supposed to hear what they say.
Yeah.
But
I remember thinking, I don't hear God saying anything to me, and I'm really afraid. And so it's kind of like you're at a crossroads of like where, well, if I'm not hearing God saying anything to me and I'm a really bad person, like that's a super scary place to be in. You're like, what do you do with that? So you sort of have, I would just say like a lot of times we would capitulate. Because capitulation would make the pain stop.
Yes. Because also there was no other option but to.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't disagree with it.
So when it happened, like there's this huge thing that happened in October 2021. And we mentioned it like in our beginning videos back in July. But basically, this is when they were just basically like, you are like, I mean, I can't remember all of the words. It was like a 2-hour, 3-hour interrogation type. But it was not even interrogation. It was just the pastor emeritus just laying into us on the couch of the lead pastor.
Mostly. And it was like... Yeah.
We were on the couch of the lead pastor's house, and the lead pastor's wife and the lead pastor and the pastor emeritus was there, but pastor emeritus was the one. It was dark in the room, and it was really dark in the room. And the pastor emeritus was the one that just kept saying all these horrible things, that I was a bad wife, that I was just like my abuser, that you could divorce me, that I have failed to be your wife. I have failed to be
Mm-hmm.
a wife. This is when he said, who do you have to turn to?
They basically were just like saying overall, the general consensus was like, what you're doing is horrible, and therefore you're a horrible person, and you've always been a horrible person because of that, because that's what they would do. They would always like rewrite
Extrapolate
everything
into deep,
and say everything is going to be horrible.
And
unless
how we got to
this.
that was, I'm assuming it's the baby thing.
Yeah.
The reason why is because
essentially
I was holding on. This is what they said about me. Because I had not had a baby yet. Oh, this is also when he said that I was running out of time, that my biological clock was ticking. That's also when he said that. So that is all that led to this altercation. This was the lead up to our fifth wedding anniversary, because it was 2021. So it was our fifth. It was the week before our fifth wedding anniversary. And so in like the days following, well, I was first of all bedridden because I could not get out of bed. And you were also bedridden because he did, it was mostly aimed at me, but he did go after you.
Mm-hmm.
And you were upset. And so I wrote them, I was like, I do not agree with like how you're talking. I said this in so many words. I also was like, what is the point of life? I was also like, I don't really know. I have the emails. I may or may not post them in this video. But basically, I was like, hey, I don't like that. I love Jonathan, and I don't like that you're saying I don't love him. They're basically like, they don't say, oh, yeah, you do love him. They're just basically like, well, you may not have meant to do it, but what you did really is bad. That's kind of like how it is, what you deserved it, kind of like it's always that you deserve it.
Yes.
And it's so bad when you are being told all these horrible things about yourself, and then on top of that, it's you deserve that. So that means that you deserve terrible things, because 1 + 1 = 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so you are just hardwired to accept this horrible thing.
Yeah.
But that was a turning point in our relationship, in the sense of we were not going to allow that to happen again. Ever again. And so when it started getting super, super bad is when it was no more. But that ended up biting them in the butt. But we could have left right then too, But that was a horrible, horrible time. Super dark time.
Mm-hmm.
Super, super dark time. And that was also intentional, because this is the irony. Whenever you're saying to them, hey, what you did to me, that I don't like that. I bring up the bitch thing all the time in 2017 or 2016, and you call me a bitch. And in 2017, I'm like, hey, can't get this out of my head. I know I'm at church right now, but I just can't get over the fact that this keeps happening, like that this behavior happened. Yeah. And then that's my fault that this behavior happened.
And I want to say something about that, because I think probably people who are in there right now, or maybe people in similar situations, like if you've not been in a situation like this, you might not understand it. And the pastors, they were the ones causing these issues, but like you might be like, well, if you had an issue with the person, why wouldn't you just take it to them? But the problem is that there's already been years of trauma by talking to them about things, by taking things to them. But if you open up if you say anything that they did was wrong, there's a 99.99999% chance you're going to get in trouble. Mm-hmm. So There was no way for you to say something to him. And then he gets mad at you for not saying something to him and say all these bad things about you. But what people need to understand is like, there's a reason why you didn't say anything.
But yeah, I mean, I did say something a year later because I couldn't shake the feeling.
Right, but I'm saying like, people,
but then it was, what they said to me was, oh, you held onto bitterness.
Right. You should have said something right away or whatever.
Yeah, but I was trying to forgive. I was trying to gaslight myself into believing that I deserved that. I was trying to believe that I deserved that behavior. Right. And I couldn't do it.
Because that's what they were saying.
And in 2021, like, I had the same problem where, yes, I was super depressed and because of what they were saying to me. And I do deal with self-doubt because of the treatment that I've endured my whole life. Right. But I just still knew, I kept saying to him over and over, even since the October 2021 interrogation, that this isn't okay. I kept saying that to you. I was like, this isn't okay. This isn't okay. This isn't okay. I kept saying it over and over until you accepted, because you were resistant to it as well. Because you had to believe. Right.
And that's why I think it's important for people to know and to hear what we're saying here, because something that to some person viewing this that's never been in the situation, you might be like, of course that's not right. Why would you stay there? Why would you stay in that place? Like, why would I stay there? Why would I think it's okay? Why would whatever? But you have to understand, and this is where I want people that are still in there to understand, like, we know that if you grow up in that situation or if you've lived there for a long time, you don't really see that it's wrong. You think, like my thought, and I know specific people in this congregation right now, if the person says, if the pastor emeritus says it, then there is no wrong. Like, he is not saying something wrong. He is a godly man, quote unquote. He loves people. He, and so he can get away with a lot of stuff because it's just, even if it's blatantly wrong to a lot of the population, it might not be blatantly wrong to you.
So I think some people fall on like, because you believed it. I didn't believe it as much. So there may be people in a different, like, there's like a gradient of belief. Yeah. But in the end, even though I didn't fully believe it, I still had to capitulate in some form or capacity to function, to be safe, to be somewhat safe in this environment. Yeah. Because if you do not capitulate, you will be hounded down and corrected perpetually for weeks, which is what many bad people, which they're not really bad people, but it's like the term we put where when they would deem someone as bad, which they deemed everybody bad at certain points. But if that person just kept holding on to something that they didn't want them to hold on to, that's when they would face just horrible messages, horrible things, mockery done to them. And so you gotta choose. You gotta choose pick your poison. Yeah. And some people were like, some people are brave enough to just like be bad. Some people are, confused enough to like not know really what's going on, not know really what to do to fix the situation because of the abuse that's happening to them. But everybody has different ways of dealing with this abuse. And it's all abuse and it's all wrong. But everybody has different ways that they deal with it. Yeah.
One of the things, so if you're the bad person, right, and you stay bad, sometimes there's no hope for you ever getting out because everything you do is going to be wrong. It just seems that way, at least.
Yeah, and so then you just kind of I think they purposely force people out that way.
Right, I think so too.
Yeah, there's they will force people out. Yeah. But they won't say that they force people out.
Right, it's never going to be like that. But I remember 2 men specifically in the church that the pastor emeritus, after the service in the church, would come up to them and say, you are just a worthless piece of, and say the S word. And just like call, like right in front of people sitting around watching, basically completely humiliate them, say that they're better off like gone or whatever. And what is somebody supposed to do with that? Like, it's not like, at this point, it's not like, hey, I saw that you did this sin, you don't need to do that. This is like far different than like somebody trying to help a brother in Christ follow the Lord. This is just like, you're worthless.
But they accepted it because of the conditioning that they had to accept this behavior. Everybody accepted it in some form or fashion because they had to, because of the power that this man had.
Yeah.
And
because
it's really horrible what has happened.
They would use things like, you know, why would they say that? He would say that, and his like quote unquote purpose was, I think these people in the church were probably lost according to them at the time. I don't know. Like,
we don't know the context.
We don't know the exact context.
We can speak on our own context.
But it's like, you have to know that he's taking biblical facts of like, without the blood, without Jesus, we are nothing. We're like filthy rags.
Yeah.
So then, but he would use that to abuse somebody and 100%. Do that stuff.
100%.
So it's just like, that is.
And that's what we're talking about with the bad messages. Like, I mean, you know, when I was bad, there are the messages on Jezebel. There are the messages on, I can't remember all of the bad ones when I was bad, but there would be those messages. So there would be like tailored, they would take Bible verses, Bible passages, and tailor them specifically for your bad. And we say bad in air quotes because it really wasn't that you were bad. So that's like, but when you're in there, and also when you're in there and you're not technically bad in the bad category, they are also slandering, which you don't know it's slandering.
Right.
But the leaders are slandering the individuals present or not present, that how they sinned, how they reject Jesus, how this, how that, and you're like, oh, if you're not like, you're like, oh, I don't want them to reject Jesus, but you don't know the context because really, especially in the case of your sister, she just like was severely abused and she wasn't like wanting to reject Jesus, but she was told that she was. And so it's a very, very like, if you know the context, and this is where it's so important to know the context, but the problem is the people in there can't know the context because they're not allowed to speak with the people who've left. And so it is a very complicated thing, but
they'd be lied about. Like when you're saying slandering, like,
yeah, they do slander. They slander all the time.
And we know this because we know specific things that they've said about people that are just not true.
Yeah, because we're able to say, we're able to hear their story and to know what's going on, what was
actually
going on
happened
with them, what their individual conversations with the leaders were,
like,
and what their context was.
Yeah. For example, we heard from my mom when she left the church that the pastor emeritus said that we were going to this certain other church once we left. And he was like declaring that as like, oh, we're going to this place. We've never been to that place.
That was bizarre.
Like, it's just like things like that he will say as facts, and you cannot argue with it.
No. Because what happens when you argue with it?
Well, you get in trouble.
Yeah.
Or he'll shut you down. Or he'll say you're not listening. Or he'll say any of those things. Or he'll get mad or whatever. And that's where the reference that they use, it's like their one reference, biblical reference that they always use to justify them getting angry, is when Jesus went into the temple and overturned tables of the money changers.
Oh, how the turntables.
Exactly. Oh, how the turntables.
Oh, how the turntables.
And they take that completely out of context too. They take that out of like they take it to justify any form and any reason to get angry. So they can get angry at anybody, anytime, and say, well, Jesus got angry.
They call their anger righteous anger. However, when you are righteously angry for them slandering you, abusing you, stealing from you, coercing you, they call that unrighteous. They call that bitterness. They call that having ought. They call all these, so that's where they twist the scriptures again against you. So then you're like, so when you're being abused, some people may not feel this, but I felt it. When I was being abused, I was like, this is so bad. This is so wrong. But then I would feel bad for being angry. I would feel bad because I'm like, I can't have that. I can't have that anger in my heart. I can't have that ought. And I would be like, repent, like internally being like, repenting of anger, repenting. And I'm like, I can't be upset about this, you know, seeing like Jonathan sacrifice. I can't be upset about this. I can't be upset about this. However, that was just
You can't, and that's
it's like, just like there comes a time when you can no longer allow this to go on in your life. And you know, there comes a time when, regardless of the messaging that you have heard from them, that you're this horrible person, that you're a sinner, that you're all that, you're like, I cannot accept this behavior. I will not accept this behavior from you. And that is okay. You need to know, if you're listening to this and you're in this situation, you need to know that that is okay, that that is not unrighteous anger. That is you not accepting bad behavior. And you're allowed to say no more. You're allowed to remove yourself from that situation. And that does not mean that you are lost. And that does not mean that you're a horrible, bitter, curmudgeon person that is a destroyer of families, okay? Or put in whatever thing that the leaders have used against you specifically, because they use specific vulnerabilities that they know about you, and they use it and they hold it over you and they poke you with it. They don't have that authority over you. You need to know, like, you do not give them that authority. They do not have a biblical authority to do that. And it is okay to remove yourself from that situation. You need to know that.
Because the other thing too that you're saying about like how they can justify their anger as righteous anger, and then they say yours is unrighteous. It's just another example about how it's, I would call it, this place's like core value or core whatever is core principle is that they are never wrong. You are always wrong. So there's nothing that you can do that's going to be right. They will never see your anger as righteous anger.
They will like, I don't know, is platitude the word? Where they'll like give platitudes of sin is sin, and everybody hurts everybody sometimes. You know,
you gotta forgive.
They will give platitudes, but they will not act those out. They will not say, I was sinning, I was angry, I'm sorry. They will not say that.
They'll basically say that
when they damned you, Pastor Emeritus said, I'm glad that made you upset.
Right.
You needed to be damned. That's what Pastor Emeritus said. They doubled down.
What you're saying is, it's like they will like secondhand acknowledge that there is something that needs to be forgiven, but they will never actually acknowledge what was done that needs to be forgiven. It's like, well, who cares if we did something wrong? You should just forgive us anyway. So it's like, God is forgiving.
But
God,
here's
like,
why that is dangerous, because, and this is the reason why we say he wants to sit on us. Buddy, just sit down.
You gotta pick one.
Pick. Sit
he
here.
wants a little circle or something.
You need to sit in a circle?
Because they have basically, they can do anything and then just say, you've got to forgive us.
Yeah, so that is using God's grace in the way that God's grace is not meant. You know, even the Bible says God for like, shall we continue in sin? God forbid. And so we say our story. We tell our stories to expose their works, because we're not just talking about something that happened to us in the past, and this is in the past. And they like to say forgive and forget. That was one of the terminologies that they would say, forgive and forget, forgive and forget. You have to forget so they can keep doing it to you. But they would keep saying that. But this is actually happening. We believe that this is still happening to individuals in there. So there is no forgiving what is currently occurring. There is no forgetting what is a current action.
That is unrepentant.
They are unrepentant in continuing to coerce people to give. They are unrepentant in continuing to use the Bible to manipulate Scripture and to coerce individuals. They are continuing in this. And so as long as they continue, we will continue to expose their misdeeds. That is why we do what we do. We want to help people. And we want to help people that aren't from the place we're from. And we are, which we're really happy about. We're able to help you too. But we do really care for the individuals that we know and we love that are still stuck in this cycle. And that is why we have our channel.
I want to just read a couple things about the forgive and forget, because they would always like talk about like forgetting the past. And like they talk about forgive and forget. And one of the things they say is like, God doesn't remember your sin anymore. Once you're saved, he doesn't remember it anymore.
Yeah.
So then why should you? Why would we remember their sin anymore? And I think what you're saying is super important, because they will constantly say that. Like I remember a conversation I had with the pastor emeritus probably a month or two before I left. And I told him things that I had issues with him on. And at the time I was trying to be like, but I'm not going to let that stand in the way. I'm going to, whatever, move past it. And he'd be like, good, let's never speak of this again. And I'm just like,
which one is this? Pastor emeritus?
Pastor emeritus, for sure. Okay. And I'm just sitting, and I'm just like, everything that there were any issues ever, you have to forget it as if it's never happened before. But that way, like, what is the thing that people say about history? You have to know history so you don't continue the cycle. Mm-hmm. They want you to forget the history so they can keep doing the same cycle over and over and over again. So if you hear that, like, and like, what are the other verses they use? Like, all things have become new, like forgetting I can't remember the verses exactly that they would use. But
I think of the Frozen song, "The past is in the past."
Yeah, exactly.
That's definitely what they want us to do, is let it go.
Right.
But
that was very much his thing. But I just see now, like, that is to maintain the cycle of abuse.
And so also another thing I don't think we've touched on yet, but this will probably be the final thing, is that when we've addressed it. So by the way, we have addressed it several times, these events. Like we've said, hey, when they did this, we tried talking to them about it. When they did this, we tried talking to them about it. And you get kind of turned into that, in that cycle. But
I remember
they will mock you, and they'll be like, quit playing a victim. Quit playing a victim. And one of the terms they use is po baby.
Po baby.
Because it's sort of like,
mockery.
Oh, poor baby. Are you being a baby right now? Like, be a man is kind of, they would do that to the men a lot, where the men had to just take it. And do you have any examples of that specifically?
I mean, there's probably a bunch of them, but I just, like, I think we talked about it in a video recently that whenever I spoke up about like how his words affected me, he then would like mock me, like, oh, you can't handle that. Yeah. Basically, like I wasn't a strong enough person to handle it. Mm-hmm. And all that. But yeah, it would be like, oh, poor baby, you can't take it, or you can't do this, or you're not, it's too much for you to have to make this money and take care of your family
Oh,
too.
I remember that too.
Stuff
I
like
remember
that.
him mocking a lot about the money stuff. I do
Poor
remember
baby,
that.
is that too much? And it's like it makes you feel like, oh, I should be able to do this, but they put impossibilities in front of you, and you should, but also make you feel like you're stupid for not doing it. The verse that is Philippians 3:13 and 14, forgetting those things which are behind, I press toward the mark.
Yeah.
And so that's the verse that they would use, is like forgetting the past. But that's not what Paul is saying in those verses. He's not saying forget what other people have done to you. He's saying forget your own sins in the past. Don't let the enemy continue to bring that up, because God's redeemed it. He's not saying forget what somebody's done to you so they can continue doing the same thing to you over and over again. But when you're standing there and you're hearing the pastor say, the Bible says, forget those things which are behind, then you're like, okay, I have to forget all of those things. And it's just like continued cycle.
I also think of that meme, like where Obi-Wan, he's like,
Yes.
these are not the droids you're looking for. So when you confront them on a real point, they use the Jedi mind tricks on you. The gaslight. The blame the victim.
Gaslight is really big, but you just don't know you're being gaslit.
Darvo is another one. We have a video on Darvo where they deny, accuse you, and reverse the victim and the offender. So when you come to them and you're like, hey, well, this is horrible, they say, oh, you're the one that's bad. You're the one that's being the bad one. So that's Darvo. So that's the way that they do that.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for watching this video. We hope it's been helpful. Hopefully it's been able to illuminate some things, maybe where you're at, or if you've seen this in a friend or a family member, if they're going through something like this. It's definitely, you want to maybe show them this video. Take it easy, because you don't want to just automatically say, oh, you're in a cult, or you're in a place of this, that, or the other, and define it, because it might be kind of like a big deal, to see these things. So please subscribe, comment, follow. You can email us at mcmasterschronicles@gmail.com, and we will see you next time. Thank you.